Hey, super scientists. We're looking at Micro 6 in your microbiology lab notebook, and we're going to be reviewing infectious and non-infectious diseases. We're on page 9. So, in comparing infectious and non-infectious diseases, let's first talk about what infectious means. Infectious is basically contagious. It means a disease that can spread. So, the types of pathogens we've looked at are these 5: viruses, parasites, protists, fungi, and bacteria. Infectious diseases are going to be caused by the presence of one of these pathogens in the body. So once that pathogen is in the body, it will harm the cells or will cause an infectious disease to initiate. Infectious diseases can be spread, so they can be transmitted from a biological vector to a human, for example. It can be spread from person to person. So there's lots of different ways that infectious diseases can spread, and we'll be talking about those methods of transmission as well. So there's 5 major groups of pathogens. We've been looking at these in more detail last week. So bacteria can cause diseases like strep throat, from streptococcus bacteria, and tetanus. You may have had a tetanus vaccine, a tetanus shot before. Viruses, examples are the common cold, flu, and HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, which will turn into AIDS. Fungi can cause ringworm and histoplasmosis. This is ringworm right here. Protists will cause malaria, dysentery, and Chagas disease. We talked about how Chagas disease is transmitted by the cold nose kissing bug. And parasites, ticks, mosquitoes, fleas will transmit the pathogen that will cause Lyme disease in the case of ticks, Zika in the case of mosquitoes, and bubonic plague, Black Death, in the case of fleas. Tapeworm and hookworm are also parasites. So how are pathogens spread? There's a lot of different ways that pathogens can be spread. An infected person, soil, food, water, or air that's contaminated. For example, if you drink after someone who has an infectious disease, then you will get those pathogens into your body. Air, if someone sneezes and they have the flu, for example, then those influenza viruses will go into the air and you will end up breathing them in probably. Contaminated object, so that could be something like a needle, for example. It could be a doorknob that someone who had the flu, use that example again, has sneezed in their hand and then they touch the doorknob and then you touch the doorknob, then you are going to end up getting those viruses onto your hand. And biological vector, which is an infected animal other than a person that is going to be able to transmit a disease. So through the bite of a tick or the bite of a mosquito, for example. Non-infectious diseases are not going to be caused by pathogens in the body. They cannot spread. They cannot be transmitted from person to person. You have your stem non here, which refers to not. So non-infectious diseases are not contagious. They would be just within the person's body, the individual's body, and it cannot be spread. So here are some different examples. Latex. A lot of people are allergic to latex or shellfish or peanuts or pollen, for example. So, and then this is a dust mite. So if you have an allergy to any one of those things, then that is a non-infectious disease. Those are common allergens that a lot of people are sensitive to. So in your lab notebook, you have a little bit of information about these non-infectious diseases. We're just going to write down the information where it is in red italics here. So an allergy is going to be a disorder where your immune system is going to react, it kind of overreacts to a foreign substance. For example, if you breathe in pollen, when the seasons change, I get allergies. That's why I'm a little stuffy right now. So different types of allergens in the air are going to cause your body to react a little differently and kind of overreacts. Some people have really severe allergies and have to have EpiPens or have to take Benadryl or something if they come in contact with the allergen that makes them sick, like bee stings. So if you have an allergy, then allergies to different things are pretty common, and it just means your body is really sensitive to a particular substance. Asthma. So asthma is also something that you probably know someone that has, or you may even have asthma yourself. So what happens with asthma is that you can see the bronchiole, the normal bronchiole. Those are the tubes in your lungs. That's the normal bronchiole here. It's got a nice large opening. It's kind of reddish in color. And the asthmatic bronchiole is much more narrow. So when a person will have an asthma attack, the bronchioles narrow, and you can see how large this one is on the left and how small this one is here on the right, and it's become constricted. And it also has a lot of inflammation here in the center. It's a lot smaller, and it may even have like some mucus or pus building up. So we're going to again write down the information in red. So when someone has an asthma attack, they can't catch their breath. They become short of breath. So asthma attacks usually indicate that people are going to have need like an inhaler, like albuterol or something like that, to calm down the inflammation that is taking place within their respiratory system. Diabetes is something else that you may be familiar with. When a person has diabetes, that means that their body doesn't produce enough insulin, or they can't use the insulin properly. So there's two different types. There's actually three different types of diabetes, but we're focusing on just diabetes in general. So symptoms of diabetes means that the person is going to perhaps feel weak or be hungry or lose weight. There's a lot of other symptoms as well, but those are just kind of some general symptoms. And there's two different types that we're kind of looking at. Type 1 diabetes, where the body doesn't produce enough insulin or any insulin, and type 2, where the body doesn't respond to insulin. So you can kind of see how that's taking place here. This is the pancreas, and this is showing you the stomach in this illustration. So when you eat food, that food is going to contain natural sugars and may also have additional sugars that have been added to it. So you will chew the food, it goes down through your digestive system into your stomach, gets sloshed around and liquefied, and then those sugars will be removed and will go into your blood vessel. So generally in your small intestines, the removal of those nutrients is going to take place. So this is showing you kind of what is occurring overall to see like an overall view. So the glucose is entering into the bloodstream, and it will be carried to your cells so that you can use that glucose for cellular respiration to take place, which we've talked about a lot. So type 1 diabetes is something that people may be born with, and then type 2 diabetes is something that people may develop over time as a result of eating too much sugar. So that is what is the type of diabetes that your body may develop over time as a result of not exercising a lot, or as a result of eating too much sugar. And cancer. So cancer is a disease, again, you may have heard of this. So this is where cells divide without stopping. So cancerous cells, they don't know when to stop. They divide and divide and divide as they're going through the cell cycle process, and they don't have kind of like this interface period of rest. So this is just showing you some tissue. This is normal tissue. And cancerous tissue, you can see that this wall, this thin layer wall here, is much thicker in the cancerous cell. And this is just kind of showing you how a tumor may develop. So again, you may know of someone that has had cancer in the past, or has had a tumor removed, or has had treatment for cancer. So these are normal cells. And then when you have a cancerous tumor that begins developing, you have sort of a mass of cells that begin developing, and then it gets thicker as the cells, again, they continue dividing without stopping. They don't know when to turn off. They don't know when to stop dividing. So they just continue dividing, and then eventually some of those cells can break off and can go through the bloodstream and travel to different locations in the body, which is really unfortunate. And that is when it's said that people, the cancer spreads. It goes to a different location. So that's what occurs. So what are some environmental carcinogens? So we know, using your STEM, carcin means cancer, and gen means producing. So a carcinogen is going to be something that produces cancer. So let's look at a couple of those. So again, your STEMs, carcin is cancer. So mutagens, the term mutagen is referring to a substance that can change the DNA. So please make sure you have this written down somewhere in your notes. Mutagen, substance that changes the DNA. So muta, as in referring to mutate or changing the form of something. So I've got a couple little fun examples here on the page. Spider-Man. So what happened to Spider-Man? He was a person and he got bit by a spider. It's like a radioactive spider and turned into Spider-Man. And now he can shoot webs out of his hand and swing around on spider webs. So it sounds pretty fun. So there was some kind of mutation. There was a mutagen that had changed his DNA through that radioactive spider bite. Turtles. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle started out as a turtle, ended up getting contaminated by some kind of radioactive ooze, and then now becomes the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And is big and magically knows karate and can do lots of fighting. So a mutagen is going to be a chemical that is going to be able to change the DNA of an individual or an organism. So carcinogens are going to be mutagens. Ultraviolet light is an example. So remember, carcinogen means cancer. So ultraviolet light, UV radiation, causes skin cancer. So if you have ever heard of someone having like moles removed, for example, they may have had some kind of cancerous development on their skin that they needed to get looked at and removed. So it may cause moles or growths on your skin to become discolored or larger or big and sort of irregular shaped. So UV radiation is ultraviolet radiation from sunlight. So that can cause skin cancer specifically. Other environmental carcinogens, asbestos. Asbestos can cause lung cancer. And you see advertisements on TV, commercials that are talking about like mesothelioma and stuff like that. So that's referring to lung cancer as well. So asbestos looks like this. It's a mineral. It's a rock. It's a mineral. And it has really these fine fibers that when they get into the air, you can breathe them in and they sort of lodge themselves in your lungs. So this is what a normal lung looks like. And this is one from heavy asbestos exposure. So it can cause cancer, causes a lot of respiratory issues. And another environmental carcinogen, tobacco products. So you hear, you see warnings about tobacco products a lot of times on TV or billboards, things like that. So normal lungs look like this. This is lungs that have been basically embedded with different types of tobacco products over time. So it could be exposure to cigarettes or something like that. It's probably going to be cigarette smoke or cigar smoke. So this is an illustration showing you cigarettes and all the different chemicals that they contain that you wouldn't think that they would have. Like there's different types of poisons like arsenic. There's materials like cadmium that's found in batteries. Cadmium can be radioactive. There's all kinds of bad things that are in tobacco products. And smoking can cause mouth cancer. So hopefully you can tell what's going on in this picture. The cancer of this person actually like ate through their cheek. So their lip is here and it just kind of separates right here. So basically their cheek has sort of disappeared because of this cancerous growth. On page 9, you have a little bit more information that we're going to finish completing. Now, we've talked about these collar cases in one of our notes before, so that should be done already. But in case you did not do that, you could go ahead and analyze this picture based on the cholera victims, the red dots, and the water pump. So you're looking for the water pump that was the origin of this cholera outbreak. And on this side where you have the pictures of different organisms, you're going to look at which organisms can be considered biological vectors. So remember, biological vector is going to be an animal that can transmit a disease. So let's see which ones are biological vectors. Well, flies, like the tsetse fly, can transmit disease like African sleeping sickness. Different types of mites, gastropods like snails, can also be part of the life cycle of different types of parasites. Fleas, lice, mosquitoes, the Chagas disease, the cold nose kissing bug, and raccoons. So really any animal other than a human is considered a biological vector if it can transmit a pathogen, if it can transmit a infectious disease through its bite.